Hello and welcome to Views on News. I am Jawad. In today's program, we are going to take up for discussion two important topics. The one that relates to the third Belt and Road Forum that is underway in Beijing, China, and the other topic relates to the situation in Gaza as it unfolds, especially after a hospital was hit as a result in an Israeli airstrike, as a result of which 500 people have lost their lives. Let's begin with the first one. Pakistan's caretaker Prime Minister, Mr. Anwarul Haqqaqat, while addressing the high-level Third Belt and Road Forum, has said Pakistan has completed 50 projects under the CPAC worth $25 billion. And this particular project, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, is now entering in a second phase. He has also highlighted the economic opportunities that this China-Pakistan Economic Corridor presents. The Prime Minister also held a meeting with the Chinese Premier, Mr. Li Qiang, and both the leaders also witnessed a signing ceremony of various memoranda of understanding and agreements between China and Pakistan. Caretaker Prime Minister Anwarul Haqqaqat, during his address at the forum, also extended support to the 8 points agenda presented by President Xi Jinping. And President Xi Jinping, while addressing the Belt and Road Forum, presented this 8 major step agenda for Belt and Road cooperation, which include building a multi-dimensional belt and road network, supporting an opening world economy, carrying out practical cooperation, promoting green development, advancing scientific and technological innovation, supporting people-to-people exchanges, and promoting integrity-based belt and road cooperation, and also strengthening institutional building. We'll be taking up for discussion all these aspects of this third Belt and Road Forum. For that, we are honored to have been joined in the studio by Dr. Khalid Waleed. He's senior economist associated with Sustainable Development Policy Institute. Dr. Khalid, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on the show tonight. We really appreciate that. At the same time, on Skype from Beijing, China, we are being joined by Mr. Yasir Masood. He's expert international relations. Mr. Yasir, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on Views on News tonight. We really appreciate that. Now, let me begin the discussion with you, Dr. Khalid, by looking at this particular statement by the caretaker Prime Minister at the third BRF, highlighting the economic opportunities that CPAC presents, and specifically talking about the achievements in the first phase. 50 projects have been completed so far, worth $25 billion. How do you look at the success of the first phase of CPAC?
Well, if we want to gauge the performance of first phase of CPAC, or first phase of this broader initiative of Belt and Road Forum, Belt and Road Initiative by China, we need to compare the economic situation of Pakistan back then and now. At that time, Pakistan was in severe turmoil of energy. The economy was in turmoil. There was severe shortage of electricity. There was severe shortage of in terms of holistic energy in Pakistan. There were load shedding of 16 to 18 hours on average. China's investment in terms of CPAC that brought sustainability into energy system in terms of coal power plants, though those were much needed at that time, that expanded our capacity and solved that accessibility crisis in terms of that. China brought confidence back to the market in terms of CPAC. CPAC brought integrity back to the market, and there were more and more investment coming into Pakistan. So that was the phase, critical phase for Pakistan in terms of economy of Pakistan, in terms of energy sector of Pakistan, and that build the confidence of investors. And now if we compare that time period to this time period, now energy crisis is almost over. Now it is time that we build on that infrastructure centric approach and infrastructure that we have developed in the first phase. Now it is time that we improve that thing, first phase, and we need to have energy transition going on. We need to transition our economy in the sense that we are now more focused toward expanding this first phase and going into the second phase, that is the phase of, I would say, technology transfer, knowledge, human building, human capital, and other sort of thing, so that the software is more, I would say, the software of growth is prioritized in this phase compared to that hardware of the growth in previous phase of Facebook.
Right, you mentioned of energy needs of Pakistan. As far as the projects under the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor in this particular sector are concerned, around 16 already been completed, 5 are under construction, largely fulfilling the needs of the Pakistani consumers here. And when we look at the list of these projects, primarily they are from the renewable energy side. What's your understanding of that?
Well, there are renewable energy portfolio in CPAC related energy projects, but most of them are coal-based power plants. Those were built because those were short-term plan, and those were easy to build and rapidly built power plants. So as a stopgap arrangement, those coal power plants were built under CPAC, but it is time that there should be more investment coming into renewable energy, and we sort of shift our energy priorities from coal-based and fossil fuel-based power plants towards those renewable energy power plants. Second thing is that China under CPAC also invested a lot in terms of transmission and distribution system of electricity in Pakistan. So that investment should be expanded in the second phase as well.
Right, let me proceed towards Mr. Yasir. Mr. Yasir, how do you look at the importance and the significance of Pakistan's caretaker Prime Minister's participation in the Third Belt and Road Forum? Mr. Yasir, can you hear me, please?
Yes, can you hear me?
Please go ahead. Yes, I can hear you now.
I think it's a very pertinent visit considering the fact that China-Pakistan Economic Corridor is a flagship project of Belt and Road Initiative. And no wonder why it is called the heart of the Belt and Road Initiative. And we in Pakistan, we believe that it is the lifeline of Pakistan's economy. Because as we know that Pakistan's economic situation has remained in hot waters for quite some time. And there are multifaceted factors behind this. So I think what Belt and Road Initiative has already offered to the Belt and Road countries and beyond is just exemplary in a state, in a sense that we call Belt and Road Initiative that it's Chinese practice of promoting the construction of Belt and Road Initiative, and China has remained a builder of world peace, a contributor to global development, a defender of international order, and a provider of public goods. So I think why the Belt and Road Initiative is a different project, because I think the best thing about the Belt and Road is that it is specifically tailored for the developing and underdeveloping states. And if we analyze the visit of the current Prime Minister, considering the fact that we are at the cusp of changing the destiny of Pakistan's economy because we are entering in the second phase of the Belt and Road Initiative. Yes, as my colleague just mentioned, that we have energy problems. Now we have a transition, and we are considered as the energy sufficient country from energy inefficient country. Then infrastructure projects have been improved a lot. So I think the second phase is very important because that's where the fruits of benefits will trickle down to the common masses. And that is because of the industrialization. We also know that, unfortunately, because of many factors, Pakistan is considered as the least deindustrialized nation. And if we see throughout this 20 to 30 years, all the Southeast Asian economies, they prospered because of their timely conversion towards the geoeconomic policies. So CPAC has given us this confidence and this boost that first time in the history of Pakistan, we have directed our attention towards the geoeconomic policies because Pakistan has remained under the ambit of the geostrategic and geopolitical compulsions for far too long, which has given a lot of dent to Pakistan's economy. Then let me also clarify that this is also the 10th year's anniversary of the Belt and Road Initiative. And I would like to quote a couple of examples that what the Belt and Road Initiative has achieved in the last 10 years and what are the challenges to Belt and Road Initiative and including China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. But the good thing is that for the last 10 years, the Belt and Road Initiative has catalyzed around 1 trillion investment. Um, there are about 150 partner countries which are part of the Belt and Road Initiative, including 32 international organizations. They have formed more than 3,000 cooperation projects under the umbrella of Belt and Road Initiative. Overall, in 10 years, it has created about 420,000 jobs, out of which 250,000 jobs alone in Pakistan. So you can see that how important it has been remained for the progress and prosperity of Pakistan. Then it has lifted around 40 million people out of poverty. The World Bank predicts that by 2030, Belt and Road Initiative will further lift 7.6 million out of poverty and 32 million out of moderate poverty. Then in terms of trade, it has increased trade between the partner countries from 2.8% to 9.7%, and global trade by 1.7 to 6.2%. So there are numbers which speaks volumes for the success of Belt and Road Initiative. Then through the initiation and of the President Xi Jinping, new concepts like the Belt and like the Global Development Initiative, the Global Security Initiative, Global Civilization Initiative, I think it all complement big time to the success of the Belt and Road Initiative. Also, in terms of
Mr. Yasir, I'll come
challenges,
back to you once again. I'll come back to you once again. Please stay with us. Dr. Khalid, the kind of stats which have been shared by Mr. Yasir speak volume of the greater cooperation that is happening among all these countries. 153 countries have signed this particular, which has also been mentioned. By looking at the statement by President Xi Jinping during his address at the BRF, he said, China can only do well when the world is doing well. The significance of this statement, the kind of weight it carries with itself?
Well, if we look towards the history of industrial revolutions, I would say this is the revolution in terms of connectivity, where global community is more connected in terms of, I would say, geopolitics, in terms of economy, in terms of other sort of things. The first phase of this CPAC and BRI, that was more infrastructure centric. The second phase would be more people centric, which means that there would be more connectivity in terms of people to people contact, in terms of business to business contacts, and obviously in terms of government to government contacts. So when there is more and more connectivity, I would say it will resonate more in terms of global arena, in terms of shifting the geopolitics, in terms of shifting of geoeconomics. Just to give you an example, if Pakistan's CPAC, this connectivity arena that could connect the Middle East with the Central Asian republics and China's, that would be a great success of CPAC and China-Pakistan relationship, because in Middle East there are finance available, in China there is capital intensity available, and in Pakistan there is huge youth bulge, and there is, I would say, labor intensive economy. Putting these three together, we can do marvels in terms of ensuring food security, in terms of providing capacity building of Pakistan's labor, and in terms of using that China's technology and capital intensity to build, I would say, the hardware for the world, and to promote others trade and other economic incentive for other regions in the world, I would say Africa and Middle East and other regions. So this can be a very game-changing thing for the whole world in terms of connectivity, in terms of infrastructure, and in terms of bringing all together on one board. My colleague just mentioned that China's broader agenda, that is Global Development Initiative, it is primarily based on the peace of the world and the world order that is maintained in a way that everybody is affecting in a good way, and we are leaving no one behind, and there is prosperity all over the world, which would definitely affect and positively affect China's economy, Pakistan's economy, and economy of the other regions as well.
Right, Mr. Yasir, now by looking at this particular statement by Chinese President Xi Jinping, that China can only do well when the world is doing well, and he also went on to say, let us advance modernization of all the countries speaks volumes of the kind of intention that is behind this gigantic project, Belt and Road Initiative, of mutual cooperation and win-win cooperation for all.
I think yes, but let me tell you that this is not something new. This is very strongly embedded in Chinese history, in Chinese culture, in Chinese civilization. I'm talking about the 2000 years old concept of the Silk Road, which has turned out to be the first instance of globalization, which connected regions, which connected continents, and which connected cultures together. And this new concept of community of shared destiny, which basically the Belt and Road Initiative lies at the heart of the community of shared destiny. The first time it was coined by the previous president, Mr. Hu Jintao, in terms of relations with Taiwan. So, and then it was rejuvenated by President Xi Jinping through the concept of the community of shared destiny, community of they call it win-win cooperation, and now they are celebrating the 10 years of togetherness and win-win. Why this is something new? Because I think that has changed the overall dynamics of international relations, where countries are now prospering, they are getting the fruits of benefits of development. There is no financial coercion in those Belt and Road countries. There is no financial hegemony going on between the Belt and Road countries. So I think it has changed the dynamics of international relations in a sense that countries feel more confident and more free because they're not tied up to any kind of geopolitical compulsions attached with it when it comes to different projects. Let me give you an example. For like out of 54 countries in Africa, 53 countries have already joined the Belt and Road Initiative, including African uh, Union Commission. Now, the problem is that Belt and Road Initiative, at the same time, when we say that it's a community of shared destiny, where the countries are actually like in case of Africa, this is the first time that a nation has stood up and helping those developing and underdeveloping states, which were far, far from the concept of development. Now people are enjoying the better, financial and development fruits of benefits in Africa. At the same time, I think there are a lot of challenges confronted to the Belt and Road Initiative, and that's what President Xi Jinping even mentioned today in his speech, that the world is still busy in the financial coercion, the world is still busy in unilateral sanctions and decoupling different states in one region or the other. So I think if the world, is still remained under this zero-sum tactics or zero-sum uh, game, so of course that will not give any uh, benefits to the world, because there in that concept, in those kind of tactics, one is a winner but another one will definitely be a loser. So in that context, I think the win-win cooperation of the Belt and Road Initiative is one of the best examples that how the China's a strong tenet of its foreign policy, which based on the inclusivity, which is based on peaceful coexistence, is now being amplified by the Belt and Road Initiative. I was
Right.
mentioning about some of the challenges, especially when it comes to the debt difficulties to the developing states and especially to the global south. Now, one of the thing is that some of the Western institutions are still smearing the China's Belt and Road Initiative, and they're still busy in the financial hegemony. But I think it's a very clumsy and a very flimsy attempt on their part, and lacks foundation and also lacks substance. Now, the latest World Bank statistics reveal that 80% of the sovereign debt of the developing world comes from the World Bank and IMF, which is the largest source of debt pressure on the developing world. One of the British organizations called Debt Justice has recently reported that 49 African countries have a total debt of around $696 billion, of which only 12% comes from China, and the rest of 35% is from the Western institutions or from the Western lenders. And the interest rate of the Belt and Road Initiative for the last 10 years remained about 2.7%, whereas the Western lenders, they vary from like between 5% or even more. So I think the figures also, the numbers also tell us a different story to otherwise what we see over the media, through which, like the perception management has been going on around the world. But I think the project itself has been going great guns, and President Xi Jinping is talking about further opening up, and he's talking about further development, equitable justice and equitable development. I think that's very important.
So
So
do you think
when we talk about Pakistan, uh, the achievements of China-Pakistan economic corridor are exemplary. And of course, we are looking forward that through further cooperation and through further, you know, um, development under the umbrella of the Belt and Road Initiative, it will certainly bring positive fruits uh, to the upcoming generation of Pakistan.
Right, Mr. Yasir, you earlier mentioned the kind of challenges which have been mentioned by President Xi Jinping, especially when talk about the unilateral sanctions, and he said that we stand against the unilateral sanctions, and you also said we have learned mutual benefit is the most important source of strength, and we should jointly address the global challenges. With this particular forum and this gigantic project of Belt and Road Initiative carrying the weight of 153 countries, and with this sort of a statement coming from President Xi Jinping, do you think this time the Western countries are going to seriously consider their approach, especially towards the developing countries?
Well, they have tried to. When we talk about the similar kinds of initiatives which Western countries initiated from 2018, there are about 4 to 5 different initiatives. But the problem is that none of them has been fruitful, or none of them has been even matured yet, which itself tells that how much disparity exists between themselves first. And I think from they need to learn from such a humongous project like Belt and Road Initiative, that how it is carrying forward the concept of the mutual coexistence and win-win cooperation among different states. I also believe that it's not an easy task when it comes to an initiative like Belt and Road concept, because when it goes to different regions and continents, of course, there are the differences of political differences. Political systems are different in different regions. Then, of course, people have their own perception about the Belt and Road Initiative or about the Chinese progress. Then there are other kind of rivalries which Belt and Road Initiative is confronted with. But the good thing is that uh, while debunking all the nefarious and negative designs which were emanating from the Western countries, the success of the Belt and Road Initiative is, we can see that it is evident now in front of the entire world. So your question is that whether they would be able to seriously think about it, I doubt it very much, because there is still a lot of disparity exist. For example, like I mentioned about the zero-sum tactics, or creating artificial wars, or creating artificial kind of confrontation among states. And we know that how this whole concept of the military industrial complex is working, especially from the Western hegemons. So, and I've also learned somewhere, sometime, that a time will come when the multinationals will rule the world. So I think when it comes to the recent Russia-Ukrainian crisis, and now what we are facing, a horrendous crisis in between Palestine and Israel, and the American, for example, policies in the global South, when we talk about the South-South cooperation or the Pacific Island, when we talk about the China-Taiwan relation, how uh, United States of America is meddling in China's personal and internal affairs. So I doubt it very much that they will change its approach. And if they carry on with that imperialistic and colonial mindset, which has given so much destruction to the entire world that still the world is actually facing all the brutalities which are actually attached with that kind of mindset. That is now we see evidently in the Arab region. So I don't think so that they will change their
Right.
approach. And if they don't, of course, the world would be a very difficult place to live in for the entire
Your
humanity.
point is well taken. Mr. Yasir, now Dr. Khalid, yesterday we saw Prime Minister Anwarullah Kakar also urged, invited in fact the Chinese businesses to invest in Pakistan's solar parks. How crucial for Pakistan that is. Investment coming into renewables in order to overcome that very energy deficit that we have here.
Well, the first phase was based on infrastructure. Second is to bring the investors to the Pakistan. If we connect these two dots of solar parks and renewable energy with the industrial growth, one possible way is that we build solar parks near to the already developed special economic zones under the first phase of CPAC. This would provide reliable electricity and reliable power for the industries in the special economic zones built under CPAC, and that would also invite more and more investors into Pakistan, so that now we are building on those infrastructure developed under CPAC, and now we are expanding towards the global trade, and we are increasing our trade. That would have a catalytic and multiplier effect in terms of Pakistan's energy demand and economic turmoil, to solve the economic turmoil in terms of increasing or boosting exports and curbing imports. So connecting these two things, energy and economy in terms of industrial zone development and boosting our exports, that would be catalytic for Pakistan. And we need to add another dimension to this relation of economy and energy under CPAC, that is the environment. If we add these three E's of Pakistan, that would be a very holistic and integrated sort of policy for Pakistan, so that we are not only focusing on energy, we are not only focusing on economy, we are making improvement for our environmental practices as well, so that we have this integrated sort of solution, and we achieve equitable plus sustainable plus inclusive development, not for the Pakistan or the China, for the whole world as well, giving them this model of, I would say, incorporating sustainable energy plus industrial growth plus environmental consideration into same equation, and have this holistic.
So what possible ideal contours of this particular integrated system of these three E's that you've just mentioned could be?
We need to understand that global dimensions of trade are going to change, as European Union has just launched or implemented their CBAM, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, which means that all the imports coming into EU, they would now face another tariff in terms of emission fees or carbon fee. In terms of, if we look the industrial processes of Pakistan and China, they are still very much carbon intensive. We need to have this, I would say, integration going on into that particular phase, so that we are decarbonizing our economy and we are decarbonizing our industrial growth and industrial processes, so that we are more and more sustainable in terms of business development and in terms of export and in terms of changing dimensions of global trade. So what we need to do is we need to have this, I would say, establishing carbon markets, establishing other sustainable energy practices, and link industrial or couple industrial growth with growth of renewable energy projects, so that we are less and less reliant on those fossil fuels. Those are needed for industrial production. Back to the phase one of Pakistan's phase one of CPAC, under which we developed so many coal power plants in Pakistan just to cater that accessibility problem. Now it is time that we focus on renewable energy, so that our industrial process, our industrial growth is linked with renewable energy. So we can cater this initiative by European Union, that is CBAM, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. So we would be more competitive. Chinese goods would be more competitive. So this integration in terms of this new innovative, I would say innovative and new tactical global trade, that would be very helpful for both regions,
So how
China
do you
and
think
Pakistan.
it is going to help Pakistan reducing its dependency on the foreign fuel and also reducing the energy import bill?
Well, Prime Minister Kakar rightly invited Chinese investors to invest in solar so that Pakistan have enough capacity in terms of renewable, so that we can shift that electricity capacity to transform or transportation sector as well, because most of the, I would say, significant amount of our imports come in terms of imported oil that is primarily used. I would say 80% of that imported fuel is used in transportation sector. So what we need to do is we need to transform our transportation sector in such a way that our imports are getting down. We are taking care of our exports in terms of industrial development, in terms of development of special economic zones. So on the one side we would be curtailing our imports, on the other side we would be having our exports goes up, so trade deficit would be narrowed down, and that would trickle into economic prosperity, and the I would say fruits of economic prosperity would be I would say trickle down to the masses, to the people, because in the second phase of BRI or second phase of CPAC, there would be people-centric approach, more investments coming into the innovation, capacity building, and human capital sector of the economy.
Right, Mr. Yasir, you already mentioned in your take the shift of the Pakistani authorities, the shift of that focus from geostrategy and geopolitics to geoeconomics. How crucial and important that was at that very point in history when the authorities shifted that focus from geostrategy to geoeconomics?
I think for any economy, for any developing and underdeveloped state surviving under the sun, I think it's a very crucial part when it comes to economic ascendance, and especially at the time if we turn the clock back to 2013, Pakistan was confronted with multifaceted issues. We had to go against the extremism, militancy, and terrorism. We were confronted with that. We had energy deficit issues, and then we had also a number of other factors, or which was the investment was directly needed. And I think there was no country which was investing in Pakistan because of these so many issues. So China's poured investment in Pakistan, which I think is such a big confidence from not only from the Chinese government but also from the Chinese nation, because we call ourselves as all-weather strategic partners, or our friendship has so many adjectives. So I think China has proved that. Also, the credit goes to the government of 2013 and then even beyond, that we kept on focusing on Pakistan's geo-economic progress. Because when we talk about the accentuation or the progress of economy, it is very important that peace and prosperity and the security issues are actually go hand in hand with each other. So until and unless there is a stability in any country, and along with the stability, only then it works like a breeding ground for the economic accentuation. So I think the step was taken in the right direction and was timely taken for Pakistan's economic progress, because today's state relations are actually swayed by the economic worth of a country. So that's why if Pakistan wants to have a better international, a role in world affairs, so even in the region for that matter, so the only possibility or the only way is that we navigate our foreign policy, our strategic partnerships, and even our political partnerships. We navigate in the right direction from where we can prosper our economy. Otherwise, if Pakistan go back go back to that conditions or of geopolitical compulsions, or if there are any strings attached to it, or if we keep on relying our strategic partnerships and do not focus on the economic ascendance or economic worth, things will remain the same. That is why the China-Pakistan economic corridor is a ray of hope now, especially when we are entering in the second phase, despite the fact that there were uh, even CPAC was confronted with so many challenges. But I think now is a positive road ahead, where Pakistan can address all the economic issues. And as I mentioned, this is the only way out for a better and progressive state for Pakistan. And also, the trickle down effect to the local masses is extremely important, because until and unless, if such a project like China Pakistan economic corridor do not bring any change in the common people lives, then of course it is of no worth, because people, of course, they have so much, they rely and they pin so many hopes from this project. So I think things are getting better, and more focus is needed, where I think we have to further align ourselves with the Chinese progress, with the Chinese priorities, and can learn and emulate from the China's best practices and can implement in Pakistan.
Right, Mr. Yasir Masood joining us on Skype from Beijing, a China expert international relations. Thank you very much for being with us on the show tonight. We really appreciate that. In the studio, we were joined by Dr. Khalid Waleed, senior economist associated with Sustainable Development Policy Institute. Dr. Khalid, thank you very much for your time, also for being with us on the show tonight. We really appreciate that. Now it's time to move towards our second topic that relates to the situation that is unfolding in the Gaza Strip. The entire world was shocked after an Israeli airstrike hit a hospital where the refugees were in the Gaza Strip, and that resulted, according to the Health Ministry of Gaza, in the killing of 500 people. Now, Israel has denied the responsibility of its involvement in it, and has put the blame on one of the Palestinian resistance groups, which has also denied its involvement in this particular airstrike on this hospital. Now, this particular attack has drawn intense criticism from all across, from east to west and from north to south, with the world leaders condemning and denouncing this particular airstrike on a hospital as deplorable in the strongest possible terms. Now, Gaza has been under a complete siege from the last 12 days, facing relentless Israeli bombardment as a result of a surprise incursion by the Palestinian resistance group Hamas. So far, it has been reported that over 3,000 innocent Palestinians have lost their lives owing to the naked Israeli aggression. Also, the UN has warned that the dire humanitarian situation is unfolding over there in Gaza, with the basic resources dwindling very, very fast. Meanwhile, we have seen US President Joe Biden arrived in Israel, had a meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, expressed unwavering support of the United States, and he said that, "I want to say to the people of Israel, their courage, their commitment, and their bravery is stunning." We'll be talking about this dire humanitarian situation that is unfolding in Gaza. What is the current situation over there, and also President Biden saying that he doesn't understand that whether this particular airstrike on this hospital was carried out by the Israeli side. For that, we are honored to have been joined on the phone line by the Palestinian political analyst, Ms. Noor Odeh. Ms. Noor, thank you very much for your time, for being with us on Views on News tonight. We really appreciate that. Now, starting off with the current situation, especially after a hospital was hit by Israeli airstrike in which over 500 people have lost their lives and many have been injured. What is the current situation over there? How the Gazans are facing the relentless bombardment by the Israeli regime?
Well, thank you for having me. Assalamu alaikum. The situation is extremely dire. It is being described by the United Nations as epic and catastrophic, and it really is. And after this massacre last night of 500 people who were taking refuge in a hospital that has been providing services to patients in Gaza for 140 years. It's a trusted community center. People are shell-shocked. They are traumatized. They understand even more that there is simply no safe space, no safe place in Gaza, and that Israel is not just targeting them in their homes, it is targeting them in their shelters. Even those who went to the southern part of Gaza, where the Israeli army ordered them to go, have lost their lives in several Israeli airstrikes. There is simply not an inch in Gaza where people can say they could be spared, all but for the grace of God.
Right, Ms. Noor. Now, when we talk about President Joe Biden, he is there in Israel, had a meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, expressed unwavering support. Now, there's been criticism from some quarters of Republicans on this approach by U.S. President Joe Biden for he happening to be the first president of the United States of America to pay a visit in Israel in the time of war. The Republicans criticizing him of being insufficiently pro-Israel. How do you look at that?
Yeah, it is. It's quite terrifying. Joe Biden set a precedent for the U.S. and Israel. He not only visited Israel in a time where it's waging war against the Palestinian people, he attended the war cabinet. And in a way, he told the rest of the world that the U.S. is actively participating in this war. It is not just simply providing Israel with munitions, with weapons, and with financial support. It is astounding to think that the Republicans can imagine a way in which an American president can provide even more support or can be more Zionist than Joe Biden. Maybe they would prefer if American fighter jets would actually participate in the bombing. Maybe that's their agenda. But what is truly concerning is that we haven't seen enough pushback from the rest of the world against this hysterical agenda of war. Instead of standing by and looking at what is happening, expressing sympathy with Palestinians, expressing outrage at the loss of life, and maybe, as we heard today from Muslim countries, also asking for, a ceasefire and a humanitarian access of humanitarian assistance. I think there needs to be Muslim countries and other countries can do a lot more to show their citizens that there is a different way of doing things and that the agenda of war is not the only agenda on the world stage, and that there are wiser policymakers out there who can imagine a different way out of this vicious cycle.
Right. When we talk about this statement by Joe Biden, that he sees that this particular airstrike on a Gaza hospital appears as though it was done by the other team, addressing Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, that it's not you. How do you look at this particular denial where the rest of the world leaders are condemning this particular airstrike, clearly pointing fingers towards Israel?
Well, I think it just provides Israel, it washes the hands of this Israeli government from the blood and the shame of murdering so many innocents. But the denial of Israel is laughable. The Israeli army has a very clear track record of lying and lying and then lying some more until it is exposed and pinned to a corner where it has to admit that it committed a certain heinous act. We saw that last year when Israel killed our friend and colleague, the Al Jazeera reporter Shireen Abu Akleh. Israel accused Palestinians of killing her in Jenin. It issued doctored videos to try and prove that that's the case. And when it was exposed for lying and for murdering a journalist who was clearly wearing press garments and identifiable as part of the press, it admitted to the crime, although it never held anybody accountable for it. So, the word of the Israeli army carries very little weight, not just for Palestinians, but I think for many, many peoples around the world. And I am confident that there will be enough independent investigations and independent evidence to lay this issue to rest. 500 people killed. It is an atrocious attack. And certainly we've never seen the capabilities of Palestinian groups to have to include anything with such destructive force.
Right. How do you think the responsibility of this heinous act could be ascertained? There is a suggestion by Russia's foreign ministry asking Israel to provide satellite imagery if it was not involved. Do you think by this way it can be ascertained that who was actually responsible for this heinous act?
I'm not sure it will provide that evidence, but I trust that there are human rights organizations on the ground in Gaza who have been indispensable in exposing previous Israeli war crimes. The International Criminal Court depend on their information and their investigation. The Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch also have staff on the ground. I trust that they will also be doing their own investigations. And, the Palestinian leadership has also asked that the Independent Commission of Inquiry be permitted to enter the Gaza Strip to investigate this and other crimes. We have to remember, this was a massive attack, but over the past 11 days, Israel has wiped out 47 Palestinian families, wiped them out of the population registry. Each of those incidents is a heinous crime in of itself. It has displaced 1 million people in 11 days. That's another crime under international law. So there will be a lot to investigate once this war is over. But for now, I think we need to concentrate our efforts on stopping the war, stopping this aggression, and on also reminding the world of that track record of lying, of deception, and of criminality of the Israeli army.
So, Ms. Noor, what practically at this point in time is required to de-escalate the situation from this point onwards?
Pressure and more pressure. Arab, Muslim, and other friendly states have a lot of cards to play. They can and we hope that they would make their voice heard on the world stage, that they would come together and leverage what they have in terms of influence and interests around the world to make the Biden administration understand that this policy line that it is endorsing is dangerous, it's irresponsible, and it will have consequences. Israel right now is being allowed to rewrite the laws of international humanitarian law. It is undoing 75 years of work to preserve human life and human dignity. It should not and must not be allowed to succeed.
Ms. Noor Odeh joining us from Palestine, Palestinian political analyst. Thank you very much for being with us on Views on News tonight. We really appreciate that. With that, we come to the end of today's episode. Till the next one, take good care of yourselves.